This is a Professional Edge. My name's Sean Todd, tax attorney, CPA, and certified financial planner, host here on the Professional Edge for north of 5 years. I appreciate your time, and if you have any questions, be sure to email me at Sean, S-E-A-N-G, Todd, T-O-D-D, at emcadvisors.net. Or give our office a call at 404-250-9798. That number again, 404-250-9798. We're heading into the last quarter of 2025, and when we look at that, we need to make some financial observations. That's why we're continuing on with that quest of financial observations. This is session number 2. And the first one, we discussed how the Federal Reserve has reduced interest rates by 25 basis points. That is 0.25, 1/4%. So if it's a 100 basis point adjustment, that's actually 1%. But in financial speak, it says 25 basis points. That sounds sophisticated, but that is 0.25%, 1/4%. So when they do that, that basically says that banks are going to reduce the interest that they pay on your CDs and your savings accounts. So we have this renewal risk, this timing issue of individuals, and the largest time when CDs mature is in this last quarter of the year. It always seems to be that way. So with your renewal coming up, before you just allow it to continue and get renewed at 3.25%, step back and make a financial observation and say, does this make financial sense if I have a CD for $100,000 and I'm going to renew it at 3.5% for, let's say, 12, 13 months, whatever the bank's requiring? The billboard I saw was to get 4% interest rate, you had to renew for 30 months. Think about that. You're going to tie your account or your value up for 30 months just to get 4%. Now, the risk-adverse person, that may make a lot of financial sense for them. But you, being a listener here on the Professional Edge, you are not completely risk-averse on all of your money. So let's step back, make a financial observation, and say, does it make financial sense to renew your CD in an after-tax account, meaning your savings account, and renew that for 3.5% if inflation is at 3.5%? Well, we're at a net zero return because the purchasing power stayed the same. You got 3.5%. But here's the real thing. Being a tax attorney, a CPA, and a certified financial planner, we're not even, because you know what? That 3.5%, that $3,500 is called interest income. And I was very clear on the example being in an after-tax account. So that $3,500 is going to be included in your taxable income. And let's say just a quick analysis, 30 basis points is your rate, 30% effective tax rate when you get the federal and the state in there. So you have actually stepped back by renewing that CD at 3.5%, the same rate of inflation. You've lost money because you have to take into account the tax consequence of paying tax on that $3,500. Basically, you have $1,000 in tax on that $35,000, so you roughly got $2,500. So you got 2.5% actual net rate of return after tax. Now, that's a big combination of words, but being a tax attorney, a CPA, a certified financial planner, you have to evaluate what your actual, real, true net of tax rate of return is, if you're being honest. Now, stockbrokers, they're not licensed to give you tax advice, so therefore that's a little bit of a difference that estate management counselors does with their investment advisory clients. We are licensed to give tax advice and a coordinated approach to minimize what you give the IRS and not have to put you in that orange jumpsuit and put you behind those iron bars. We wouldn't do that, but there are just simple ways not to pay the IRS as much as just opening a CD, put $100,000 in, you renew it 3.5%. It's the end of the year. If inflation is 3.5%, you think you're staying even. You're not, because you had to pay tax on that. So you actually lost 1% of your purchasing power net of tax. So that's a financial observation. The real net after-tax rate of return is what you should actually be calculating. So if you want to sit down and have that very candid conversation, the first meeting's on us. That means it's complimentary. You know what? If you talk a long time and we have to schedule another one, then you know what? It probably is going to be on the house too. I got to be able to help you as a listener here on the Professional Edge. When we sit down and have that confidential conversation, and yes, talking about money is probably one of the most protected or hidden things. We don't walk around saying what our bank account balance is or what's in our stock portfolio or what the balance is in the 401k. Everyone is cloaked in darkness. And as soon as you come to the realization that the assistance of a licensed professional helping you with your money decisions, there's a reason why wealthy individuals have CPAs, they have tax attorneys, they have financial advisors, because they make good financial decisions. It's very objective. It's professional counsel and advice. So if your money, your portfolio is of that level, not saying you have to be wealthy of $10 million, because an individual that has $500,000 has to be able to make very good decisions because they can't afford to make financial mistakes. That is another financial observation. Making good financial decisions are even more important for individuals, let's say from the $300,000 to the $900,000 of investment portfolio. The individual with $10 million, they can get away with making some mistakes because they have enough. They don't like to make mistakes, but it's not as detrimental. So if you're in that 300 to, let's call it $1.8 million in financial assets, you're the ideal client for estate management counselors, because that prudence on understanding the net after-tax rate of return, whether you're gaining or actually losing when you put all the numbers together and being honest with yourself, that becomes very important for you to make sure that you're going to get to that safe and secure retirement. So that's the financial observation. Put a professional on your team and you say, well, I'm going to do it myself. Well, when was the last time you objectively analyzed the risk in your portfolio? And we're going to have more coming up in the later sessions about the concentration risk that we're seeing in the marketplace. So if you want to have that candid conversation, do give our office a call at 404-250-9798. It's pretty simple to remember, 404-250-9798. So with that in mind, we have this last bit of the 2025 year. So the Fed indicated a 25 basis point adjustment, a reduction. So that decreased that. The renewal of a CD is going to be a lot less. Now, bonds, when interest rates go down, bond values go up, and depending on the duration of that bond, if it's a 10-year plus duration, then the value of that bond went up more than a 2-year duration of bond. So that's where we look at that fulcrum on a teeter-totter. The further away, meaning the maturity date of that bond, the further fluctuation in value. Now, when we didn't know how interest rates were going to go, or when the Fed jumped interest rates as 50 basis points, it was the highest, change in interest rates, the quickest change in history of the interest rates going up. Well, you know what? If you were on that far 30-year Treasury note, then the fulcrum went down dramatically. But most people weren't out there. They don't need to have that 30-year instrument. So they're closer to the fulcrum. They may have a 10-year duration bond, or they may even get closer than that and get a 2 to 3 year duration portfolio of bonds. And therefore, there's not that much price fluctuation or the value of that bond being fluctuated. So the Fed has indicated that they potentially may decrease rates again by 50 basis points coming up. Not saying that that's going to happen in December, but they're sort of forecasting. And yes, analysts analyze every single word that the Fed says to try and get an understanding of where they're going, what's going to be the next interest rate cut to get ahead of it. So how do you get ahead of it being a listener here on the Professional Edge? Well, if we say that the Fed, or we project that they are going to actually reduce basis, 25 basis points, the next two meetings, at each meeting, that's a total of 50 basis points. That's 0.5%. Then how is that going to impact your portfolio? That's when we sit down, make the analysis for our clients and say, okay, here's your exposure on that. Are you okay with that? Meaning the price may fluctuate, but you're okay with that because of the yield that you're getting on that bond portfolio. So it's understanding and making the financial observation, what's the impact for that decrease of 50 more basis points in my bond portfolio? Or what do I need to do different with my CDs that are coming due? Some have stacked up $100,000 and they have $500,000 in CDs. And yeah, they're going to mature after the Fed has reduced the interest rates another 50 basis points, if that's the projection. Now they have reinvestment risk of where do they put the money now? Well, we're not going to be able to ladder those in those 4.5% and 5% CDs anymore. They're going to be in the 3.5, maybe 2.75. And again, 2.75, if inflation is 3%, 3.5%, you're slowly losing money safely. So that's not really the right way to go about it. So there are alternatives available to you as a listener here on the Professional Edge. So with that, the financial observation is, what's the risk in your portfolio and what is the long-term strategy over the next 1 to 2 years for your investment portfolio to actually gain from what the Fed is saying they potentially might do, another 50 basis point cut over the next two sessions. But in early 2026 was sort of the tarot card reading of what the Fed Chairman Powell said. So my name's Sean Todd, tax attorney, CPA, certified financial planner, host here on the Professional Edge. I appreciate you listening in. And you're always welcome to call our office to set up that initial consultation at 404-250-9798. That number again, 404-250-9798. I appreciate you listening to the Professional Edge.
We've all thought about it. Everyone listening will need one. Not having one can cause untold heartache, family conflict escalating to the point of a lawsuit. One simple thing that avoids all that: an effective estate plan. As a practicing tax attorney, Sean Todd with Estate Management Counselors has completed over 1,000 estate plans during his 15 years of professional practice. He can help you implement an effective estate plan, coordinate your financial accounts, and make sure you have named the proper beneficiaries to maximize your tax savings. Call 877-654-9798 today and let tax attorney Sean Todd help you implement an effective estate plan. Call 877-654-9798 today. As a tax attorney CPA for over 15 years, Sean Todd has implemented over 1,000 individual estate plans. He has recently authored an especially helpful guide, How to Unlock the Ultimate Estate Plan. This guide has helped many individuals to understand the benefits of an estate plan and how to avoid unintended disasters. Sean has made every attempt to write this in plain English. To receive this valuable guide, How to Unlock the Ultimate Estate Plan, call 1-877-654-9798 and request your complimentary copy today, or by emailing your request to info@emcadvisors.net.